Okay, we should be good.
Okay. Paul forgot the microphone again, so I think we're going to have to write it down on his forehead. For him to... You got stains on your shirt.
What?
That's paint.
Well,
That's
I painted
paint from
today.
Earlier, yeah.
I painted today.
Well, welcome everybody. I'm Jenny.
I'm Paul.
And we are GoBox Art Crate for those who are just tuning in for the first time. For our family and friends out there, we want to say hello. Thank you for joining again. Hello, Benny. I see you on there. Hi, Joanna. Thank you guys so much for joining. And I'm going to guide you through a fun painting tonight.
Yeah, and I think we both have our December paintings that we did, and so we'll show those at some point in time today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts?
No. Let's zoom on in.
Let's get at it. All right. There we go. Whop.
So here is what we're going to be doing. It is called Frost Hollow, and Paul's is. Oh, where is yours? It's nearby. It's right behind you. His is Frost Mountain. We will be teaching that one next Friday night. So it's It's Black Friday actually. It's the day after Thanksgiving.
Wow.
So if you are like us and stay inside and avoid crowds at all costs for Black Friday, join us online and paint this on YouTube next Friday night.
I think I need to...
With your turkey stuffed bellies.
It looks like maybe it's clipping a little bit, so let me turn that down. Can you guys still hear everything all right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, okay. We should be good. I'll keep an eye on it.
So this painting I designed, we were on a beach vacation actually, and It was stormy out, the ocean was raging, and it was like the perfect time to paint, and I wanted to paint something cozy, so that's how this came to light. And I also wanted to paint something that was somewhere between fall and winter, so I was going to call it First Frost, and then I thought, Frost Hollow is kind of cute because it looks like a little hollow, and some little critters live in this tree.
Well, let me grab my painting again real quick, because then I thought, well, why don't we put Jenny's scene in my painting?
So this is the big tree with there's the window.
Yeah.
So they go together like we do sometimes. And
we do.
Next month's paintings go together too. We can show those real quick.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll show them again later for people joining later. So for me, you guys get a gnome.
Yay, gnomes.
I like to do something fun and whimsical for Christmas, so that's what we'll be doing in next month's box. And then Paul's is a snow globe. He sent this to me via Messenger, and I said I called him a flat earther.
Boy, you have been bound and determined to work that in, haven't you?
He sent it to me before he had done this part, though, and it had the light globe, but not the actual glass.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny, though. I have to pat myself
We
on
can
the
call
back for that.
There's that old, boy in the bubble thing. We can call that joy in the bubble. So, I was going to put the gnome in it, and when I did paint him in, but he was so small, I thought, okay, that's going to be a little bit difficult, but when we teach it, I'll show you how to do it if you want to add it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, well, we're going to jump into this one. There are details towards the end that will take a little bit of time, so we'll go quickly on the background because it's less important. So much of that background gets covered, so I don't want you to stress about the background or worry at it at all.
Already worried.
So colors this month, we have bright red, craft yellow, turquoise, cobalt blue, and white. Notice we have no black, so this time for our black, we're going to mix these two colors later on. Let's take our biggest brush to start. Go ahead and dip it in your water cup, kind of brush it gently back and forth across the bottom of the cup, and let's dry it off.
Dry it.
And we're going to start by mixing turquoise and white. We're going to paint the water line first, so that's this.
Okay.
And you can see it's a really light minty color, so just make something in that realm. I'll just scrape off some white, plop it down, and mix a little turquoise in. Probably 2 parts white, 1 part turquoise, something kind of like that.
Shooting for Aquafresh.
Make quite a bit of this, though, because we do use quite a bit of it in the background sky. Yeah, Aquafresh. That's what it looks like.
Actually, it kind of looks more like just like old school Crest now.
And I'm going to come up about 2 to 2.5 inches from the bottom and use the thin edge of the brush and just draw a horizon line across here. At least close to half of this gets covered up by landforms and whatnot, but let's go ahead and fill that in. as you are filling it in to give it kind of a icy look, you can just dip your brush in white and streak some white in there.
I think this is the quickest we've ever gotten started actually painting.
Really?
Like, it's only 5:35. It was like, we did not talk.
Well, I knew this one has some steps, like I said, towards the end that, like the mushrooms and the window and all
I mean,
that.
we might have people, though, who are like, well, they usually talk for 8-9 minutes, and they're going to come on and be like, oh, no!
You know, I think the majority of people watch it and then paint later.
I think you're right. Or they just tune in to see what's up because
Yeah.
we're, like, cool
We're
like
painting.
that.
So now, just above this line, we only need to leave just a small gap of white. You don't need to leave any gap, but we can because that gets covered up by land.
But mostly we're leaving the gap just to give ourselves a reference point. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah. So I'm just kind of going different directions with my brush, letting it run out of paint as I go higher up in the sky. Now I'll grab a little white, get some of that in there to kind of suggest some thin, wispy, frosty clouds. This kind that you get when it's just going to maybe start snowing. I can't believe that we are already at November 18th. It's crazy. Over halfway through the month.
Insane. Well, yeah, next week is Thanksgiving. Is that right?
Yeah, next Thursday.
And Black Friday following day. I don't know if we haven't planned a Black Friday sale, but maybe we will.
We will. I was thinking about it today.
We kind of loosely talked about it, but we haven't been very formal in any of it.
So you don't necessarily need to have much paint over here, but up here we have some gaps in the tree that we'll show sky through. So let's get some paint up there. We're going to start adding some darker color in a minute, but before, see how I'm occasionally grabbing some white? Before I go too far up here, I want to get this, I put this little kind of greenish glow over here. I don't really know why, I just know my brain wanted it there, so I think I went into autopilot and we're going to go with that. You can dip your brush in yellow, you don't have to wash it or anything, just mix some yellow in with your pale turquoise. If it's too like margarita colored, you can mix a little more white into it to lighten it up, but not too much because the white will turn it not necessarily a tone that you want for this sky, but it is a nice touch here having this. Kind of balances out the yellow that's in the window.
You know, for some
across
reason,
the pond.
For some reason I had two photos of this painting, and I don't know if you redid it or what, but one of the versions didn't have that green in it, or it was, maybe it just didn't come through in the photo or something, but it adds a lot actually.
Yeah, I did it twice. The first one I didn't take pictures of. I did it while we were at the beach, and I put two windows in the tree, and it kind of ended up getting a little complicated. And I had this big mushroom down here rather than little ones, and it was just getting too detailed. So I'm going to wash my brush now just to get the yellow off, and we'll start adding. What do we add here? A little cobalt and red, I think. Yeah. I'll show you the picture. If you have your step-by-step sheets, you can reference those. But you can see right now we're like at this point, and we're going to start bringing in this darkness up in here. Like it's a big dark cloud up there. So just wash the yellow off the brush.
Wash. Whoa, oh, that was close.
What'd you do?
I was like almost washed my brush in my drink.
Oops.
Like, I was so close that the water moved from the air when I pulled the brush away.
Paint flavored coffee. I'm just getting some fresh paint on here. And now I'll just dip a little brush. I'll dip my brush in a little cobalt. Kind of mix it in. Let's brush some of that on there. Just to test the waters here. Let those two colors mingle. We need it to get darker than that. And now I'm going to add a little red. The red will overpower right away, so it's going to turn it real purple, which is a nice color. And you can even start painting from the top of the canvas downward. Now the key thing here is you don't want it to be too dark violet because our tree is really dark violet and the tree can get really lost in this if your background appears too dark. So make sure you have some of this turquoise and white mix in it. Just go a little bit at a time, gradually. The little meeting right here is going to be kind of ugly for a minute because this is mostly dry and those two colors blended together are not going to be great. So I'm going to show us all how to blend those nicely. Now you can occasionally just brush some plain old turquoise up in here. I will show us all how to blend this line in.
I gotta say this.
If you need to, but I will show everyone.
The cobalt, white, and turquoise are kind of a magical combination, honestly. They create such a pleasant color.
It's a nice color, yeah, I agree. So I'm struggling with, I'm trying to darken it, but the light color that I have back there that's still wet is really overpowering everything.
Well, that's unusual.
Yeah. But I think, looking at my original, I think if you look at the backgrounds compared, it's pretty close. Maybe I have a little more dark turquoise up in here. I've been doing a lot of painting lately. Like yesterday I painted all day long until about 11 at night. I have a friend that I'm doing a commission for of Spider-Man, comic book style. That's really fun. I was a little nervous about it because, I mean, if you look at Spider-Man's costume, it's a lot of line work, but got it done and I'm super pleased with how it turned out. We actually turned her son into Spider-Man, so he's Peter Parker. I'm gonna wash the brush now. And then I started working on a cat. I have a friend who has a hairless cat, and I've always wanted to paint him, so I got a really good photo, and I'm going to surprise her with that. Because she has been a really awesome friend, and I thought it would be really nice to do that. So I washed and dried my brush. I'm going to take just a little bit of this turquoise. You can see I don't have a ton on my brush. And I want to really lightly go over the seam where the light and dark color meet. So we're just kind of really pulling some of this dark color down in here. I'm not pushing hard. If you push really hard, you're going to just push paint around. We want to just softly glaze it in there, if that makes sense. I'm going to go all the way across, and I'm going to actually use that here too, where the lime green comes in. Just to soften that transition. Again, just go quick in the background. So much of this gets covered up that you don't need to stress about anything. Stress on the, if you want to stress on something, if you're a stressor, which I can identify with, stress on the detail things. But really, try not to stress at all. It should be fun. A lot of times we had to remind people in the studio.
I always feel like it's like
it's like fun. This is fun. Remember?
It's a stress energy budget. You only have so much stress that you can invest in a painting, and you have to be very careful about how you spend that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to budget it out. Okay, there's our background. Woohoo! There's thin spots. I can see the canvas through a few areas. See some brush strokes. Totally fine. I'll just put some well-placed foliage up there. And you can see so much of that background is covered up. Now, clean that brush off real good. We're going to work on some of these landforms. So we're going to step 2 now. Right here, we do these landforms and then some really light colored trees in the background. You can see those trees are very, very light. My background landforms I have in 2 different shades just to kind of differentiate them from each other. This one is kind of a true violet. This is more of a gray violet. We're going to actually start with this one because it's in the front. Let's pick up our number 8 brush. I think I've called this number 4 a bunch of times because it
They're
reminds
kind of
me
a-
of another brush we
They're
have.
almost a little bit interchangeable.
It reminds me of that white number 4 brush that we have.
Oh yeah, but they're almost interchangeable.
They are
So
really close. Okay, so color-wise, let's mix turquoise and red. So this is what's going to give us that sort of gray-toned violet. I don't love this color, but it is kind of cool to see.
it serves a purpose.
Yeah. And you can put a little white in there, or even just some of this white turquoise mix, just to make it a little more opaque. So you want to keep the darkness, but just adding a scrape of that lighter color will keep it more opaque. So I'm just going to hold this up here so you can see that color. I don't even know what I would call that. It's like moldy eggplant.
No, there's not enough life in there.
Okay, so here's the landform. It's going to, let's make a couple marks. So about halfway between here and here, maybe a little above halfway, just make a line, a dot, so that you know where you want that to go across. And then up here, I'm going to go right here where the white is, and I'm just going to kind of meander down and go a little bit past halfway. It's going to come down to a point. And then we need to connect these. That wasn't a good line up there, but I can work with it. And you can change this up. You can make it, like Paul, I know he'll do his kind of craggy.
How'd you know?
Because I know you. I know you and your landscapes.
Hey, I just did a snow globe.
A craggy snow globe.
I mean, technically it's a landscape within a snow globe, but
Oh, the landforms never turn out right for you, Joanna. So what you want to do, I know it's kind of hard. For me, I struggle with the tops of them. I don't know what part you struggle with. I kind of struggle with, I tend to make them like suddenly, like you can see it goes from like really shallow to really tall right away. That's one of the things that I do. But the main thing, you want to keep this bottom perfectly flat if they're in water, because that is exactly how it would look.
It could be, if I may speak on authority a bit.
We'll see. Depends on what you have to say.
It's not so much that it has to be flat, but as long as it gives the perception of being horizontal.
Yeah.
so you can have jigs and jags to it, but as long as those have the feeling of being horizontal in nature.
Yeah, because you can like bring one out. Like I've seen some of your paintings that do that.
Yeah. And I could go into a big explanation as why, but I'm not going to do that tonight.
Thanks.
Maybe we'll do like a nice shoreline sometime, and we'll talk about that.
We do give these a second coat later, so right now they're just going to appear really streaky and transparent, and especially as they dry, it will get even more so. That's one of the fun things about when paint dries. It's like it becomes more transparent. But what I want to do before we move on to the background one is I need to smudge some of this color into the water because it would be casting a shadow in the water. You can see that here, there. So I just take my brush, it collects some wet paint from the bottom of this rock formation, and I just come under and brush back and forth. So I'm essentially eliminating the straight line I had drawn in there, and I need to actually grab some more paint because I'm running out. And you can just come down a little bit. You don't have to come down the whole entire way. And in fact, sometimes it's helpful if your brush is really dragging, just mix a little water with your paint. And we just want a soft shadow. When we come back in with the water line later, that's going to make our edge of our rock reappear.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh, bird.
Okay, Snuffleupagus. There we go. This is definitely one of those things that you want to work quickly on, and you won't love it yet.
Sweetly.
Gonna wash the brush, work on the one behind it. So it is a traditional violet, just red and blue. Probably about equal parts. I tend to lean towards more of a blue violet, just personal preference, but if you want a red violet, that would be fine too. And we'll just paint this on here. We can see if we need to add some white to it, but I don't think we'll need to. So this one I made the landform a little more interesting. So the bottom, this one is back further, so the bottom line is back here a bit. In fact, I'll just draw that in real quick. Just drop down below that water line about close to 1/4 of an inch or so. Come across. And this one's going to have the waterfall. So we do need to have a flat spot
On the flat earth.
on the flat earth. So I did it right here. The waterfall kind of goes just behind where this starts curving down. So what I'll do first is just do a couple peaks. And then here I'm going to flatten out like that. Maybe make it about 1 inch or so wide. You can always rework it a bit, and then I might climb up a bit more and back down. And I usually will take a look and redraw some things. So what I see right now is this is all at the same height, so I want to immediately make this a little taller. That's my personal preference there, I guess. And we'll start filling this in now. If you need to use a bigger brush, you can. I'm just still using that number 8.
Just a note on the color. In general, when you're doing landscapes, you typically want cooler colors in the background because your perception of warmer colors tends to dissipate faster than that of cooler colors.
Interesting. Where did you hear this?
Jerry Yarnell.
Okay.
So it helps to...
Well, my cooler color's in the front, so...
Yeah, but
Did I
it's
get an F?
Yes. F for the flat earth comments.
F for fantastic.
Fabulous!
So just be careful up through here. The two landforms will kind of merge a bit, and when we add highlighting later, that will change. One thing you can do that's kind of cool, I didn't put this on the instructions, but it's something I thought of when I was painting it. You could add just a tiny bit of white, so I just grabbed a little bit of white on my brush and brush it in around here, around the bottom where the waterfall goes in, and it can give the effect of some mist. Or not. Well, this gets another coat anyways, it's very streaky. So now I want to smudge the color down into the water like we did here. I am going to wipe my brush off because I can see I have a lot of paint jammed up in there. I'll brush my brush across this bottom edge to pick up some more fresh paint and just go down a bit, maybe a little further down here to match that peak, sort of. If you were doing a hyper-realistic painting, you could absolutely just match the reflection to the little landforms, but we're not doing that. I do not have the patience for that. I don't think hyper-realism is any... I love it. I enjoy it. I think it's amazing, but I don't think I could ever do it. I think I have just not the attention span.
I started one.
I remember.
And I lost interest in it in a hurry.
So this I can touch up later with some of this turquoise water mix if I feel like I need to touch it up. Right now this painting is in a sort of ugly phase for sure. The sky is kind of nice, but the rest of this it needs to be continued working on. Now we're going to paint some of these background trees. Now I have both deciduous, tall, skinny trees with very little branches, and then some of these little pines, and I've got like a shrub here. You can put as many or as few trees as you want, or no trees. I don't think it will like make it wrong to not have trees.
The
in
only
it.
thing that would do is it would take the hollow part out of it.
Oh yeah,
Because it's kind of hard to have a hollow without trees.
true that.
But, I mean, that doesn't mean you have to call your painting what we call ours. So,
Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go with this color. So that was this one right here. That was turquoise and red. I'm gonna mix some of this white and turquoise with it, or just white, either way. So we're making a lighter version of that color. Is that what I use? You know, I think I've got a little dark blue in there too. Let's throw a little dark blue in there. We want a color that's gonna be light and not match the background, but sort of be not super noticeable in the background. So I'm going to hold my brush up. That looks about right. Let's see. What do I want to do first? I think I'll do some of the deciduous trees. So I use the thin edge of my brush, and I come up with a wobbly line, and then I'm just going to sort of split off and make almost like I'm doing a Y shape. And these branches up here just disappeared. You can add a few onto them. These are tall, skinny, like trees that probably wouldn't stand in nature. First gust of wind, they'd be down. And I'll do another one. And maybe I'll jump across here and do one over here. Keep in mind our big tree is going to be here, so you don't need to do many over here. And I just sort of let these branches just go off into the sky there. Now before I change colors, I'm going to do at least one pine tree with this color I made. So I could mix a little more of this light turquoise and white with it just to lighten it and have it be slightly different. And I did these the way Paul does trees. So instead of drawing a trunk and doing branches all around it, I just started off using the corner of the brush to tap little dots to make the part that you put your, like if you're thinking of this in terms of like a Christmas tree, it's that part that sticks straight up that you put your star on. And then on either side of that, I just do a V. So this is what those fir trees look like. They have that, it looks like a little bird footprint. And then I'm going to turn my brush and use it horizontally, and I just literally kind of zigzag back and forth. Sometimes go up, sometimes go down, but you're basically zigzagging. Zigzagging and tapping.
Gonna catch on one of these days. Everybody will see that this is the right way.
It's got a little darker in there. That's okay.
This is the way.
Don't worry if you overlap into your landforms, because again, we're going to give those a second coat of paint. And now, you know, I'm going to mix just plain turquoise in this. Change it up a bit. Maybe a little white. Felt like that got really dark. But I want to lean more towards just turquoise. You could also use this color here, the violet, and add some white to it. But let's see. How about I'll do a leaning tree like I have in the original. It just goes across here. This is the one that's going to fall down. And if you want to do maybe a tree over here. I like doing these tall, skinny trees. They're just pretty easy. You can see I do a few little broken branches here and there. And then I'll do another one of these, but I want it to be a little taller or shorter, either way. I feel like that's really close to the same color, which is fine, but I'm going to change it up a bit. I want to know if any of you have put up your Christmas trees yet. It seems like people are doing that earlier and earlier ever since the pandemic. Doesn't it seem that way?
Yeah, absolutely.
We are one of those. Ours is up, but it's not necessarily our choice. It's a family member's choice.
That family member would be Jenny.
No, it's the 16-year-old.
Neither of us stopped her.
No, we both were like, okay. So last month we got our Halloween decorations up late, and we all just sort of complained that it felt like the holiday just lightning speed passed by, and I think that was part of the reason. Okay, I'm going to do a shrub over here, and I'm just going to do turquoise and white. You might have some
Who
left.
cares about Thanksgiving?
I know, right? It just gets bulldozed over. So this is just turquoise and white, and you can see it's very light, and it just sort of is, I don't know, kind of almost blends in the background, but I like that. I love that look. It's like, gives the illusion that maybe this one's further away than the others. The darker ones are up closer. Maybe I could do one over here too. Some kind of shrubby thing. Okay, maybe that disappears a bit too much. When I looked at it on camera, it's like hardly there. So I'll just add a bit more turquoise. I tried to think about this as a round shrub, but then I automatically started making it look like a pine tree, so, well, it's just the way it goes.
It's a mondo pine.
What's a mondo pine?
It's a type of shrub, pine shrub.
Gosh, how do you know these random facts?
Because we have one in our yard, and I had to figure out what it was.
Oh, was it that one that did we cut it down?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big one. Like short and fat.
Well, it wasn't short anymore. It was like Shaquille O'Neal, big and fat.
Hey, don't fat shame him. Of course, I was fat shaming the shrub.
Yeah.
It was short and thick. Okay, we go right to the tree.
I'm sure Shaq's feelings wouldn't be that hurt. I think he's pretty secure in himself.
We're gonna go right to the big tree. So take a breath, wash your brushes,
Take a sip
take
of
a
your
sip of
beverage,
whatever you got going on there.
even if it's just calming tea.
Okay, and putting the Christmas tree up next week. Yeah, early decorating for sure. I think our neighbors think we're crazy.
Yep.
Okay.
Except for they put their lights up this week too. So
Yeah, they did. We see we've been influencing everyone. Okay, so we are going to make this color again. That's your. Let me get it out of the glare. It's just your cobalt blue and red. So you're gonna make violet, but you want to make a generous pool of that color because we are gonna use it to paint the big tree. Scrape off blue, plop it down, get some red going on in there.
you know, if you want to add to the black factor, add a little bit of yellow too.
Yeah, you could do that. It would tone it down and kind of make it a little darker.
It's crazy. It actually makes it darker. I've got a generous pool for me.
You made it. Oh yeah, you made the kind of. It's actually kind of a dark green.
Yeah, I did a little bit more blue and yellow than red.
Okay, so first, what I'm going to have us do, let's. You're going to use the thin edge of your brush. Find this upper right corner. Jump in about an inch, and make a mark. And let's just take this all the way down. So I'm kind of wobbling my brush a little bit. And then we're going to start going outward. So it's getting thicker at the base. And it's going to kind of come down like this.
Oh, Dan's in the house.
Hey! Now, if you made something that was a little too swooped, we're going to be able to add to this and fix it up. And especially when we add this other branch that splits off right here. So let's fill this in first.
Fill it in, fill it in. I don't know what that was.
I don't know either. And you will be able to see through this and see your landform back there, but we put another coat of paint on the tree, and we also get to put some bluish highlights on it later too, so that's going to take care of that.
You know, I think I just did the Glade plug-in jingle.
Plug it in, plug it in.
That is what I did.
Gosh. That's
Oh my
so
gosh, that's pathetic.
funny. What's wrong with you? Okay.
I just have all these jingles in my head and they just won't go away.
I always thought you could write jingles. Be good at it.
I don't know.
So for the next branch, it's part of the trunk. It's just the trunk splitting off. You can use this brush, or if you're more comfortable, you can switch down to your number 8 and draw it with that one. But basically, I'm going to, right about here, I'm going to come in and then I'm going to start going off so you get this sort of triangular shape right here. And this becomes a very big branch, so I'm going to thicken that up. And that reduced the size of the triangle a bit. So this is like one of those old gnarly oaks where the trunk splits into 2 or 3. And then I can touch up this. I do like to try to give it almost a ripply edge, like bark.
No, actually, I watch very little TV. Joanna asked if I've been watching a lot of TV. I don't watch much TV.
He watches TikTok. He's addicted.
I watch YouTube. I do watch some TikTok, but we don't get Glade plug-in advertisements on either of those. I think
funny.
it's a carryover from watching a lot of TV as a child, though. I'm one of those Gen Xers that was a latchkey kid and had no adult supervision growing up, and now I hate everything about my
You
life.
had
No, I'm
adult
just kidding.
supervision.
I'm just kidding.
It's just when you were right after school from till about 7, you were the latchkey kid who played video games all night till your parents got home, and then you had to act like
No,
you were
actually,
doing homework.
I didn't play much video games back then. It was after you and I got married. Actually, you know, when I got into gaming, really, was like when you worked as a bartender, and I was like home every night.
Okay, before we move on, let's go ahead and give our landforms a second coat of paint. Since we have this fresh pool here of the violet, let's just start with this one. I'm going to use my number 8 brush. My dad was he was always one that was like, did not want anyone to watch TV, because if he was definitely he was a military guy and was definitely if you've got time to lean, you've got time to clean type of person. And then when I was in high school, he got hooked on Days of Our Lives soap opera. It was the funniest thing ever, because he's just like this macho guy.
Alpha male.
He's an alpha male for sure, and he got hooked on. He had to know exactly what was going on with Victor, and
And then he would call his mom and talk about it. Remember?
yes.
They would like call every day and like compare notes on what was going on in Days of Our Lives.
Oh yes, the siblings and we had a good time making fun of him over that. But then we got hooked on it too when they like buried this woman alive in a coffin, and like she had air hooked up and water and a microphone. It's so funny. It was the 1990s Days of Our Lives. Such drama.
And the funny thing is, he used to kind of give you grief about watching like sci-fi and fantasy because it was too far-fetched. I was like, come on, man.
Let's talk about Days of Our Lives, Dad.
At least these others don't pretend to be real.
Okay, let's give this one a second coat of paint too, and that was the turquoise and red mix, so I did wash my brush.
Are soap operas still on?
Yes, Days of Our Lives is still on. Now this doesn't have to be the exact same shade. You can make it a slightly different shade. Mine actually ended up being a little greener, but I'm going to grab a little white. Throw that in there. That's when you really start seeing the grayish. That's so funny. I think I have less red in this one. So again, it doesn't have to be the exact same shade. We're going completely over everything here. And look, I made the exact same shade. I'm surprised. Oh, and if you wanted to keep that mist going through there that I showed you earlier, you have to redo it. Sorry, I didn't think about that.
Way to go, Jenny. Make people
Look
do
at that
things
at the
twice.
Just use very little weight if you do that. It's such a small area that I wouldn't really bother unless you really want it. Maybe I'll make this one a little craggier. That's what I struggle with. I want to smooth everything out.
Don't do it. Fight the urge.
You're the craggy man. I'm smooth-brained.
You're saying you're a koala?
I'm a koala bear.
You're a koala and I'm a crocodile.
I'm just gonna bring this shadow down a little bit more because I felt like it needed some help. And again, when we put the light colored water line in later, the bottom of these will reappear like magic. Okay. That is really in your face. It looks like it's just pasted on. There's no depth or dimension to it. We'll fix that later, I promise. Now we are going to literally branch out. We are going to add so many branches. So let's look at the step sheet. We are on step 4 out of 9. So look, we're almost halfway through. We are going to add a whole lot of branches. Lots and lots. So I use a combination of brushes.
And a whole lot of rock.
For the main branches, the larger ones, I'm going to use my number 8 using the thin edge of it. And then for the little twigs that kind of come off of those, I'll use my smallest brush, so your little round one. And then just bringing this over here again. Let's have a look. Look at all the branches. Lots and lots of those. And then I've got this root system. That was fun, and it's optional. I was thinking about this earlier today. You could leave it off, and it's not really going to change the painting in feel-wise very much. It will a little bit. Like, I don't know what this does. It just does something. I liked it. I guess it was my idea at the time. So let's add a drop of water to your violet mix just to make it a tiny bit more fluid. That way your brush won't run out of color constantly when you're drawing a branch. Now these branches way up here get completely dabbed over with foliage, so you can experiment. I like to use the thin edge of the brush, and I'll make something like that goes off the top of the canvas. And then where the branches grow out of the tree, that's where they're the thickest. And then obviously on the ends they need to be real thin, or else they would just continually be breaking off like crazy. So I'm going to do some larger main branches like this. And then I'll start switching to a smaller brush. So again, we're up here in the way upper part of the tree, so you can have fun and not worry too much because of the leaves we put on. You could do a little broken off one here. Maybe one over here. Spooky tree. There is one that is right here, down further. And I'm going to do that one next because I need to leave space for it. So it just kind of right about maybe a little more than halfway up. Comes out and up, crosses over. That is a really horizontal. This is like the perfect sitting branch. Except for all these that'll get in your hair. So I'm going to switch now to my smallest brush. Just set that one in the water. I'm going to dip this in water, spin a little water, swirl a little water into my mix. I like to pull and twist my brush so I don't have so much paint on the base part of it. And this is where I have fun and I do lots of little twisty twigs. And they can be reaching and reaching.
Kind of like my humor sometimes.
Yes. There, I'll put this picture right here. This reach out. Some of them even point downwards, sort of, kind of down at an angle. All of these are what's going to help us when we build our foliage. And remember, branches cross over each other. They intermingle. It can be a snarly mess up here. A snarly mess of branches. You can have mistakes up here. Down here where we do the roots, those are pretty much exposed. So those you might be kind of locked into in this branch here. Do you remember when we had our first house, we had two gigantic trees like this. Were they maples?
Oak.
Oak. One in the front yard, one in the backyard. And we thought they were so beautiful. And we had, I don't know, close to 3/4 of an acre there. And then we had our first fall there. And it was like, wow. We weren't expecting all those leaves. Bags and bags of leaves.
Well, and oak trees drop their leaves really late.
So it was ice cold out.
Yeah, so like I was raking leaves in like December and January instead of
And
October.
then again later. Because it was not a all at once process.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I feel like I could have some of these that come out a little further. Just when I looked up on the monitor, I saw that I could just keep going. So this is very much a Halloween tree right now. You can refresh your paint with a little water once in a while. I'm using very light pressure too. The lighter the pressure, the thinner your lines are going to be. And now I'm going to work on, let's see, what do I do? Do I do the... Oh, I was going to do the roots next, but I think I want to highlight this guy first. I think I went out of order when I did it myself. When I designed it. Let's see here. What color do I highlight that in? There we go. Step 8. I'm skipping over to step 8 for the highlight. White, turquoise, and yellow. So we're going to get a similar color to this. And that makes sense because the sky here is going to reflect down on that. I will use my number 8 brush. That's your second largest in your pack. So let's grab some turquoise, yellow. It's margarita time.
Sounds good. Let's go.
So it makes this really fun color right here. I love this color. But we're going to add some white to it to soften it. And we don't want it super duper, well, actually it's okay to have it kind of light, but we're not going to use a lot of paint. So I'll swipe my brush down my paper towel so I have very little on here, but it will show up. It will show right up. It looks like there's no paint on my brush, but look at that. It's really showing up too much, I think. So I'm going to wipe a lot more of that off and just kind of drag this around. So think about for highlights, the parts that bump up the highest are the ones that are going to grab the light. So what I like to do is scrape down a bit, and then I just kind of let it run out of paint. And you get that more three-dimensional look, which we needed there. Right here, might get a little last bit of light, but this is not going to have too much because it's kind of in the shadow of that guy. And you can take a flat shape like this. I could leave it like that. But when you've got it like a tall flat shape, it's kind of fun to come in and create, like maybe there's another little bump in the rock here. It comes out and goes down towards the water. So see that? Now it suddenly looks like there's a lot more to it. This would get some highlight too. Maybe this little spot too. It's a lot like how Paul highlights mountains actually, which you will learn all about again.
No, not this month.
You don't highlight the mountain?
Not too much.
Okay. Snow covered.
There is suggestion of highlight, but I didn't want the focus to be on the mountain, so.
So the cool thing about doing your highlights this way, it can take a bit to figure it out. It took me a really long time to figure it out. I'm talking like I've been painting for over 25 years, and it's probably in the last 10 years that I got to where I figured this out. And it's from taking Paul's classes, because he's a master at this kind of thing. I tended to want to smooth everything out, which doesn't look right. And so the cool thing, what I was saying is, if you don't like your highlights, you can just paint right back over this once these highlights dry and start over with a fresh little palette.
I don't like being called the master because then it's like masters are
You want
like
to be the
Monet.
mistress?
No, that's like Monet and things like that. But the one piece of advice I would give on this is set it and forget it. I'm going to steal
Set it and forget it, yeah.
Steal the crazy glue
That's a good one.
slogan. And what I find is most of the time what people do is they try to blend out the highlights, and then it's not a highlight anymore. It's just the color.
Yeah. So I'm going to do this one too. Same exact thing. Now you can see I have very little paint on my brush because not a ton of color's coming off. One thing you can do that's pretty fun too is you can have your highlight, this kind of hazy, not a ton of paint highlight, but closest to the edge where the light would really strike, you can do a stronger highlight right along there. So then that gives it even more dimension. And I feel like I've got a good amount of highlights here.
Don't forget to add your color in your water.
Oh yeah, I didn't do that on the original, but if you want, you can do some horizontal brush strokes in the water, particularly if you have strong highlights. Okay. Root system! That's what we're doing next. Hold on. I wanted to show again how you can do that stronger highlight right along the edge. See, now it's glistening. Pretty fun. Okay. Roots. So a lot of people, when they're painting this sort of thing, might like to turn this over, like upside down, and pretend you're painting tree roots again, tree branches again. Like pretend this is the top of the tree, this is the bottom, and you're painting tree branches. The only difference is obviously this would not work, having that thick thing there. So do it however you feel comfortable. Sometimes it's good to take that, the thing that might stress you out of the equation and just work on it upside down. So I need a little more of this paint. And right about here, I'm going to come up and arch down and just go down to the water. And again, where these come out of the tree is where they're going to be thickest, so I'll thicken that up and then come down so it joins into one single line. And I'll do another one right here. This one maybe will go off the bottom of the canvas. originally I wanted to do a little like cutaway, like there's a little cave or something, not like a cave, but kind of like a cave in the tree. Some kind of little...
Some way to get into the window?
Yeah. And I tried it, and it didn't really work out, and I thought, this would be really hard to teach. So I just kept with the root system, added some ivy type of stuff and mushrooms. So you can branch off of these, and branch off of those branches, lots of little twigs.
You know, sometimes just leaving a little bit of mystery in a painting is good. Like,
For sure.
how does the person get in the tree? We don't need to see it.
know.
We can just use our imaginations.
It's like the Princess Bride. What do they have to do? Remember, they have to like speak something and enter that tree.
Oh, yeah. The Pit of Despair or whatever it was.
Yeah. The Pit of Despair.
And wasn't the password like super obvious too?
I don't remember.
Just trying to remember.
Okay, I feel like that's pretty much what I want. I'm gonna wash the brush. Gonna pick up my big brush and give the main part of this tree another coat of violet. Just to up the opacity. I see lots of, oops, that was too red. I see lots of little brush strokes and things that just need to be given another bit of paint. So I'm focusing primarily on the giant trunk and these big branches. But if you feel like any of these need additional paint, you can come in with the smaller brush. So much of this gets covered up that I wouldn't really bother with it. You can always touch it up later. Awesome. What next? We are on step 5. Highlights. We're going to put some highlights on the tree bark itself. And I'm just talking about this along here. Our light source is over here, outside of this window. So this, pretty much the left side of the tree trunk is what's going to be highlighted. This might be a bit too wet right now to do that, so I think I'm going to reverse the steps and we'll do the red foliage next. And then we'll go in and add the bark highlights. So the red foliage, because we have some wet purple through here, in some spots it turns kind of purplish, and that's what I actually wanted that to happen so that we have some contrast going on. So we have some darker purple leaves, and then later on when we add a bit of yellow, we get the orange. So it gives it a little more depth. Look how much is on there, quite a bit. And that's going to help. Not only will it help these little fairy lights stand out, but it's also going to help fill out your tree and cover any weird branches that you might not like. So we're going to be using our biggest brush. Oops, gotta get that off. And I'm going to be doing something that I never do, but Paul does all the time. And it works best for what we're doing next. So we're actually going to dip the brush in the paint, and then you're going to tap your brush, mash it up and down to kind of splay out those bristles. So it looks like instead of being a nice, perfect straight edge, it's going to look all flared out like that. And we'll just start dabbing. So a lot of times when people are doing these, in classes, live classes, I would notice they would follow each tree trunk. So when they were done, it would look like they had like fuzzy caterpillars all over each, not tree trunk, tree branch. And it doesn't look quite right. What you want to think about is there are all kinds of little tiny twigs that you can't see because we didn't paint them. That these leaves are attached to. So you're just kind of puffing these all around the branches. You don't have to follow the branches. You just have to plop them around. Right here, maybe there's a little tuft there. You go right over the top of some branches too. Some of these, maybe you go over again and give it a more opaque coat, and that's going to make that red really pop too. It should make a little noise. Pop, 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 pop. Up here, maybe there's some branches up here that they have foliage coming off of them. I do like the look of that, having it continue off the canvas. A little puff there, a little puff there. If you want to use a smaller brush to get some of these little tiny areas, you can, but a lot of times I'll just use the corner of this. So you will see bits of the sky through the background, but you've got a lot of foliage going on. See, I did a puff here where there was really no little branches. Just imagine there's some little twigs coming off of this big branch that would hold these leaves on. So splaying out the bristles like that, that's what gives you this fun, almost kind of Japanese maple sort of texture to your leaves. Close your eyes and do it if that helps. So if you have too much sky showing, then go in and just load it up. You just need little holes here and there. I feel like I've just about got enough here. Yeah, for sure. Now we'll do those tree highlights, and then we'll paint some ivy crawling up the base of this tree. That looks like a very Paul painting. Is that a Teletubby?
Where? No. You're not supposed to peek yet. I'm building a mystery.
Oh. Okay.
Oh!
I'm going to switch down to number 8 brush. That's enough. Can't handle much Teletubby. Our kids are grown. Okay, we're going to mix cobalt and white. Probably, if I were to give you a recipe, I'd say 2 parts cobalt, 1 part white. You want it more on the blue side, not super duper light. Kind of vintage 1970s denim color. You could even mix a little red in there just to tone it down a bit. I like that. Here, I'll show you. It's got a glare on it. So there, that almost made periwinkle. I love that. I love periwinkle. It's one of my favorite colors. So again, I've got a lot of paint on my brush from mixing, so I'm going to swipe it off on my paper towel. And now I'm going to use the thin edge of the brush and come along here, and I do these little scrapings, little lines that follow the tree down. Oh, look, got glare so you can't see it. Yeah, let's zoom in. I always forget. Let's zoom on in. Okay. Yeah, the glare there is not helping. But I'll tilt this. You can get some on some of the branches if needed. But I'm mainly focused on the trunk. One thing I like to do is... Which light is it? It's the ring light.
The ring light?
Yeah, maybe No? Okay, it's the overhead light. So one thing I like to do is sometimes I'll do like a little whirl like this. Like a knot. And I'll mix in longer lines with shorter lines, but they're always just scratchy and sometimes kind of wavy. Sorry, got off the camera there. I want to get some up here too. Let me zoom out just a tiny bit. Okay, that's good. And then down through here, no need to go all the way down to the bottom because the ivy's gonna go there. Now, so that you don't have like just a solid line where it's like, it's all lines and then blank, I do bring one or two highlights in this way. So that, yes, they are concentrated on the outside. You can tell that's the highlight, but there are a few random ones in further too. Now, the cool thing is if you go a little too crazy or your color's a bit too light, you can glaze over this. Throwing brushes over there. You can glaze over this with your violet color.
I got some good carry out of that one.
Very cool. Okay. Gonna have to hold my canvas like this for the rest of the night. No, I won't have to. Because...
You want me to turn the light a little bit?
I could play around with that real quick.
Maybe.
No, you might knock the whole camera stand down. It's okay. We're done with this part. When we do the little light in the window, then I will funny. Here, I'll move it over this way. There, you can see it. Enough. Okay, let's zoom out.
I don't see the glare anymore, by the way.
Just a little on the edge.
Yeah.
No biggie. Okay, so let's get some ivy on here. So I'm talking about this. Fun. It's got a few little flowers. Cobalt and yellow are two colors on the palette that will make green. Well, turquoise and yellow does too, but it makes more of a vibrant green. So cobalt blue, yellow, look at my palette, it is getting full. So I have more yellow than blue. It's probably 3 parts yellow, 1 part blue is the mix I tend to like to use. Kind of an avocado green. If you want to tone it down, you could put a little red in there, but you don't have to. And I just start down here, and I'm just using my little number 8 brush and doing little dabs. We'll do it pretty thick and full down at the base, and then as we crawl upwards, we're going to thin it out a bit so that we'll have more of the tree background showing. You can see there. So it's real thick and full right through here, and then as it crawls up, it's going to thin out. Okay, so now I'm going to start doing some little trails of ivy, little fingers of ivy that crawl upward. And they can go as far as you want them to. You can even, after we paint the window on later, you could make some that kind of climb around the window if you wanted to. Before I wash my brush, I'm going to dip it in yellow, just grab a little tiny bit of yellow, and just to change up the color variance here, add some yellow. And we do add yellow flowers later, but this right now is just kind of blending in with the green and just lightening few areas, especially towards the light source over here. There. Now we're going to go back to our red foliage. We're going to add some yellow. When you're ready. So just dip your biggest brush in the yellow, splay the bristles out, and just add bits of yellow where you want it. It's going to turn kind of orange. If it's too yellow to the point you think it will compete with these little fairy lights, which keep in mind, we mix white and yellow to make those, so they are going to be lighter than just plain yellow. But if you feel like this isn't orange enough for you and the yellow is really showing up too much, you can dip your brush in a little red and then dip it in yellow. So you've got the two wet colors together. Now you can put as much or as little of this on here as you like. I just kind of hit a few tufts of leaves there. We've got fall and winter coming together. You might go over a couple of these yellow bits with a second coat just to make some of them stand out more than others. That's pretty much all I'll do for that. Now we're on step 7. Woo. Waterfall time. Okay. Number 8 brush is what you want to probably use, either your 8 or 4 for the waterfall, depending on what you feel most comfortable with. I'm going to use my number 8. And you don't want to pick up too much white, just a little. Here, let's have you zoom in, Paul. We're going to zoom in on the waterfall part.
Well, I can't control where it zooms in.
Not to that level yet.
No.
So in this one, I had a little rock right between here, and I was able to do a split waterfall. You can totally do that. What you'd want to do is do your split first, and then come back later and add the little peak of this rock right there. I think this time around I might just do one waterfall. So you want it to come right above the rock face. You don't have any rock face showing up at the top of the waterfall here. And then you can see I have very little paint on my brush. And I'll just brush down, feather light brush strokes. See that how my brush is running out of paint, and then I get this really cool look here. It's kind of streaky. And you can go in and you can add bits more white paint where you want it to be. Feeling very Bob Rossy right now. This totally seems like something he would do. Waterfall. So you can add, if you think about like waterfalls, sometimes some areas there's larger sheets of water that come through, so that might have more opaque white, and then other ones where the water's a little thinner trickle. And you're just going to bring it down as close to the water line as you can. And then once you are at the water line, you can, just like we did this, you're just going to dab a little white here so it looks like maybe there's little splashes coming up. It's not a super tall waterfall, so there wouldn't be a ton. And just fix that up to where you like it. Always keeping in mind with acrylic paint, you can paint over anything. You just have to let it dry first. So if you're unhappy with your waterfall, you can let it dry, mix your violet, swipe over it. You might have to do 2 coats. and just start again once the violets dry. But next I'm going to have us do a few of these water lines. So this is what's going to bring back the edge of our land lines. And I do remember when I did this having right through here being like, oh, I have all these roots coming over. So I want to use the thin edge of my brush. And you know what? I think my number 4 brush is a little flatter, not as frayed as the other one. I'm going to mix a little water and white together over here. My water's sort of purplish, so it might turn this kind of lavender. That's totally fine. Now, I have a lot of paint on my brush. I'm going to swipe some of that off. So I have very little, redip the tip of the bristles. And just using the thin edge, I'm going to come real light pressure along here. And you can have broken up lines. Like, see, I've got some broken up lines. And then I'll come down and make a few ripples. One thing I like to do is around landforms, I like to do a little ripple effect. Like, oh, the water's flowing around that. Little water rings. And then we'll come across this one here. And I think the best thing to do with these roots is you could just let your brush run out of white, or you can very carefully go between a few of these. And then I'll add a few little glassy water lines in this lower part of the water. And any of these, as they dry, might become a little more transparent. Any of these you can come back and add a bit more paint to if needed, if the white dries sort of transparent. But it doesn't have to be a in-your-face sort of things. It can be pretty subtle.
This is very whimsical. I am enjoying it.
Doesn't it look like it would be like in a Middle Earth?
Reminds me of the one I did. I ended up
Hobbiton.
putting the Hobbit smoking a pipe sitting on the...
Yeah, totally. I just fixed it. I didn't think I had it too broken up. It was almost looking like a dotted line, so I fixed that up. What we need to do really quick with the window, we actually paint a white rectangle or square or whatever shape you want to do, because there's different shapes you could do. Like one of the things I toyed around with doing, I'll just paint it on my palette. Like I have just a kind of a square window on mine, but you could totally do a pointed arch like that. And then later on when we outline it and all that, you can do a split and then do the little crisscrossy window panes. That's fun. So you can do a window like that, or leave a window off. The window is 100% optional, of course. But where to put it? Okay, let's have a look. On my original, I just have it kind of close to the middle of the tree. And I'll probably paint it with my number 4 brush. White paint so that it starts off super opaque when we come in later with the yellow. So here, it's kind of a square, like I said, on my original. I'm tempted to do it different, but I think because this is what I'm teaching you guys, I was tempted to do that pointed arch, but I think because I'm teaching you guys this one, I'll do it the way I did it on the original. It's not quite a square and it's not quite a rectangle, it's a square-tangle. And it doesn't need to be super opaque white. Oh, that's not very straight on this side.
It's in a tree.
It's getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, my tree on the new one's a little skinnier. Oops, I must stick that in the coffee. Okay, I think we do the fairy lights next. Step 9 has so many. Step 9 has so many steps. It's all detail stuff. It's such a long wall of text. Look at that.
You get mad at me. Holy wow.
Well, we don't have a lot of room for tons of pictures. I try to keep it at 9 just to keep Eric so he's not going crazy. Eric does our graphic design. He used to be a teacher in our studio. I think I've talked about him, and he moved to Palm Springs. But he works remotely for us, and we'll always have that because he's amazing. Okay, really quick, I'm going to get my little yellow flowers down here. You can use your littlest brush, and you can do yellow or pink by mixing red and white, or you can white. You could just do any color you want, honestly. And I'll just do I just do little dots together to make like a little flower shape, or just single dots are fine too. But I just usually do 1, 2, 3, 4 dots together, like they're little buttercups. Watch out for making them evenly spaced. I always have to go in and break up patterns, because that is what we do. We humans, we love patterns. I'm not going to put any over here quite yet because I want to save some space for my mushrooms. These are little flowers that only grow in the light. How about that? So they're on the edges here. Flowering ivy. Hey. Wouldn't that be fun? I love the look of like those English cottages that have ivy growing all over them, but from what I understand, it's really bad for the house. Very bad. The mushrooms are super easy. I have, let's have a look. I have some capped mushrooms, like the poisonous ones that you see in Alice in Wonderland. Those kind of whimsical mushrooms. And then I have these look like enoki mushrooms, which are so yummy. Depending on how you use them, they're really good in soup. Get them at a Asian grocery store. I'm just going to use white first. And I'll make the stem of the large red-capped mushroom. So it's just going to come up here and curve, and it'll be thicker down at the bottom. You can even round it out like Papa Smurf style. Remember their little homes are mushrooms? So I'll let that dry just a bit. And then these little ones I called like enoki mushrooms. They're skinny. And you can have them grow in a little cluster maybe. And then the caps are just domed and longer, long and skinny. These probably resemble other varieties too. My trunks of my mushrooms are getting, the stems are getting thicker and thicker. We will let those dry. And you know what I'm going to do, actually? This is something I did on one of the versions of this I painted. The cap that ends up being red, it really gets lost kind of in there because going over the green, it's really dark and I had to do multiple coats. So what I'm going to do is, like I did with the window, I'm going to paint it white first. So think of it like a rounded umbrella. And it's going to dry, and then we'll come in and paint red over the top, and it will be nice and vibrant that way. And if you want to have a peekaboo of another mushroom cap, you can do it down here. It just goes off the canvas. Let's do our fairy lights. Just thinking here. Thinking out loud. Before we do the fairy lights, let's do the little random snowflakes if you want to add those. So you can see those in the background. There's none in the tree. They're just in the background sky and then landing on the landforms.
Hi, Christy. Thanks for stopping in.
Hi. Okay, let's zoom out just a bit, Paul.
Let's do it.
So this part is super easy, goes fast. You don't even have to think. You're going to use the handle end of your smallest brush. You're going to dip it in the white paint. Maybe dab it once on your palette just to make sure you don't have a giant glob. And you're literally just going to stamp little white dots. Or big ones like I just did. That's a monster snowflake. My white's been sitting here for a while, and so the top of it's become kind of thick. So what I like to do sometimes is take a larger brush and just scrape the top out of the way so that I can access this more fresh paint underneath. Because that's what made, like, this one was kind of sticky and gooey, and it's just from having the paint be thick. But now it's working just great. And make sure that you do some of these over your landforms, maybe some over some of the tree branches and roots, trunk. Very first snowfall of the year. I don't know if some of you guys have snow yet, like some of you guys who live in the Midwest states. Our friend Aru had snow in Michigan.
Yep, he told me it was snowing earlier this week.
Huh. Okay, I've got just about the right amount. Make sure you put some down over the water too, so it's obvious that it's snow and not some kind of weird stars. Okay, so I cleaned off the handle of the brush. I'm going to use my number 8 brush just for the size of it to mix the color we use for our fairy lights. So it's a pale, well, it's yellow, but it's a little bit paler than straight out of the tube yellow. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix white and yellow. I'll scrape off some white. Make sure you have a nice pool because you're gonna be dipping the handle of your brush in it. So if you have just like a thin little mix, it's not gonna work very well. So I have more yellow than white. It's probably 2 parts yellow, 1 part white. Kind of, sort of. You definitely want it on the yellow side, but just maybe a shade or 2 lighter than standard out of the bottle yellow. Okay, this next step, we actually use the handle of our little brush again, so you can just set this other one aside. And for the fairy lights, which like I said, they're totally optional. Cute. What we do is we actually use our finger and smudge little dots into an orb, and then we go back and stamp a dot back in the middle of that orb. So it gives you that glowing star look. So I'm going to do one somewhere over here. Just stamp a dot down. Use your finger really lightly. You don't push hard at all. And that one needed to be a little bigger. So I'll do a bigger dot. It's really not showing up. Maybe I'm trying to remember. Maybe I used a bigger brush handle. I'm going to go try it out with my number 4 brush. That'll make a bigger dot. Dot. Smudge. Dot. Smudge. Sometimes you have to do it twice. I'm going to try it with just yellow because I think that my yellow-white mix is maybe a little too on the white side. So what I do, once I have all of them done, you can do them, you know, you do a few at a time and then go back and dot the centers. But I just take the yellow paint and just dot a center in the middle of each of these. So this is, I'm not using the mixed yellow and white for the dot. I'm using straight yellow because it just has a nice warm glow to it. Party in the hollow. I feel like my dots aren't big enough. I'm gonna try using the, which is something I don't usually have a problem with. So the wet paint dots are a little too small. So there's a nice big one. So I flipped over using the brush end. Do what feels comfortable. Okay, so I feel like I have quite a lot of those now. And I'll go back to my smallest brush, plain yellow, and just stamp a bright yellow dot in the center of each of these little hazy orbs. I don't know if that was one, that might have been my yellow leaves. It's okay, works. We've done a lot of paintings over the years of Christmas trees, and this is one of the techniques that we very often use to do Christmas lights on the tree, so they have this sort of glowing look to them. It's soft and fun. Gives you a cozy feel. You could even do just plain dots without the hazy orb if you want. Mixed in there with the others. If you feel like you need some more lights in there, but you're tired of doing the orbs. Fun. Oh, I have a few over the top of the tree trunk here too. Like fireflies. Whoa. There, fix that one up. A lot of times I have to go over them more than once because it's either this smudging has spun it into an oval instead of a circle, or it's just not opaque enough. Don't have a ton left to do, just mainly the window stuff, finish up the mushrooms and put some falling little leaves in the sky. Okay, I'm going to go back to the mushrooms now. Just want to make sure this is totally dry by the time we go back to it. And it's almost there. I know mine is dry. I want to make sure your guys' is dry too. I'm going to shade the mushrooms. So on the original, they're shaded in this lavender. Paul, I'm going to have you zoom in. And I will make sure the mushrooms are there. There we go. Okay. So we don't have to worry about the caps. They're going to be red. But I do want to shade the right side of each of the mushrooms here. We do that with lavender. So you might have some wet violet paint left. You're just going to grab some white and mix it in until you get lavender. So it's red, cobalt blue, and white. You might pull and spin your brush just to knock excess paint off. And we're going to go down this side of the stem here. Shade it up. This one gets the cap and the stem shaded, and the other ones too. And my mushroom caps are dry, so I'm going to go ahead and paint them red now. I'll use my number 4 brush, which just got yellow paint all over my hand. But you could use your smallest brush, depending on the size of these. But now, going over this white, it's such a nice, vibrant color. It really stands out, which is cool. And you might need a second coat. You just want to make sure and cover all the white. So if you have outlines of white showing, just go right up to the edge and cover it. I'm going to let those sit for a bit and dry before I put the white dots on them, and that was also good in case you need a second coat of paint. Let's go to the window. So just check it, make sure it's dry. Mine is dry here. And I'm going to use my number 8 brush, so that's the second biggest one again. It's the one we probably use most of all in most of our paintings. This one right here. First, we're going to create the glowing bit around the window. So if we didn't have this, it wouldn't be quite as cozy, but I don't think it would ruin the painting. So if you are uncomfortable doing this, you can leave it off. But I think you'll be fine. We want to use plain yellow, so no white mixed in the yellow, just plain old yellow because it's going to be transparent that way. Pick up just a very small amount, maybe even swipe some of that off. So look at my brush, I have very small amount of yellow. It's funny, it looks kind of green in the camera. And I'm just going to go around the window, coming close in at first. Okay, so I need more paint. Close in around the window first. I need more paint than I thought. And I'm just going to create this, letting my brush run out of paint as I go around this. Create just a big glow. And it could just sort of fade out. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, just go kind of around the window. It can be kind of squarish even. And you can give a second coat. If it shows up sort of greenish and you need it warmer, just go in, repeat the process. We outline the window so it's going to stand out no matter what, even if you have a really opaque circle of light here. You can use your finger, smudge it around like we did up in the tree. And then I'll just coat my window with yellow. We'll let that dry. A little peekaboo window. And then we'll go back to our mushrooms. Then we'll put some falling leaves in the sky. Then we'll outline our window and we will be done. So just a few more little steps. So if your mushrooms need a second coat of red, you can do that now. I feel like mine were kind of cranberry colored just because it went over the white. So just a second coat of red will make them more of a true red. And then even though they're still wet, this should work for the little white dots. You can either use the handle of your brush, your little one, or you can use the brush end. Let me try the brush end. Just make sure you get a nice glop on there, because then you're not really going to have to worry too much about the wet paint, the wet red paint. There. Now I'll do this one. I put some on the outside edges too because they are raised dots. Aren't they called like a something wart? I remember you looked it up when you did your moon shrooms.
Yeah, they're a wart.
It's a wart. It's So special. All right. Let's zoom out, Paul. Let's show everybody how to do, that's probably good. I'll show everybody how to do falling leaves. So what I'm talking about are these. They're just orange. You maybe even didn't notice them until I pointed them out just now. They're super simple. I have a few, landing here on the landforms, and you can even put them landing on the water if you want. And we're doing them with our number 8 brush. Number 8 never gets a rest, I swear. So cleaned it off, dried it off. This time we're going to make a pale orange. So we want to do 2 parts red, and 2 parts yellow, 1 part red to start.
Oh, hamstring cramp coming. There it is. Oh boy. Okay, it's gone.
So I would say a little more yellow maybe.
How to say you're getting close to 50 without saying you're getting close to 50.
The paler the color, I think you'll be maybe a little happier at first, because it might feel weird painting over your sky that you already did. Now I have a lot of paint on my brush from mixing, so I do dab it off and then just redip the tip of the bristles. So I feel like I have a little more control that way. And I like control. And then what I do is I just do a little swipe, a little tap and swipe. And again, be careful not to do a pattern. I feel like I could mix a little more red in my color. Yeah, I like that. Just a tiny bit more red made that stand out a bit more, but not too much. And yeah, it's just a little, you can use the corner of your brush if you want, or you can use the flat side. Maybe a combination of the two, because leaves as they fall are just gonna kind of twist. And I'll do some on the water. Do some over here. Some here, some here, some here. You can have a lot or little. That's all I'm gonna do. Then we're gonna finish up our window and be done. Oh, zoom in on the leaves. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, Joanna, right? Zoom in on the leaves, I just saw that. Yeah, so there you go. You can see they're just a suggestion of leaves. Like, if you looked at this, you wouldn't be like, what is that in the background? Or at least I hope you wouldn't. I think you'd probably know that they're leaves. And we're going to stay zoomed in anyways, because we need to have that for the window. I have to look and see what I mixed for outlining the window. Yes, just what I thought. So the window outline, the frame around the window, and the split between the window needs to be a dark color. So we're going to make violet again. If you might still have some. I think I'm going to toss a little yellow in there, just a small amount, to make it more brownish. Here's a spot. Almost done here, guys. Look at my palette. It's special. So very dark. This is kind of a plum color. So it's got maybe a tiny bit more red in it. Yeah, you can see, look at the difference between those two. Now if you want to sort of dull it down a bit, you can scrape up a bit of yellow and throw that in there. And that's going to make it more close to a brownish shade, but not quite brown. It would take a lot of yellow to turn it really brown, but you want it really dark. So if the yellow lightens it up too much, add some more blue and red back in there. Now I'm going to pull and twist my brush to get that excess paint off and redip the tip of the bristles. You can, I'll probably have us put some water in that color. when we do the window panes. But for the outline of the window, we can just use this color. So I'm just going to go really carefully. I'll do these 2 vertical sides first. And now I'll just divide this right down the middle with same thickness as the outline. And I'll show you real quick before we go too far. Let's have a look at my very imperfect window panes. So I mixed water with my paint, and that gave me a little more control over how, well, maybe control isn't the right word, because I wanted it to be able to do it quickly without them looking too thick. And so that way you can see that the window frame itself is the one that stands out more than the window panes. So, to do that, I'm going to dip my brush in water and pull aside some of this and mix some water with it. So it's kind of transparent, you can see. I can add a little more. Wipe my brush off on the towel so I have no paint left on it. Now I'm going to dip the very, very tip of this, like pick up the tiniest little bit of paint on the very tip of the bristles. And starting down here, I'm not using, see how I'm coming in on the side? I have my hand set on the table for balance, and I am barely using any pressure at all. You can go all the way across, or you can do these individually, like you can do this one and then do this one. And they're totally uneven, you know. Some drunk little gnomes built this, I guess. Very, very imperfect because my vision can't handle going that close and doing a perfect job, I guess.
Your eyes start to cross.
I don't have my reading glasses, which I desperately need. So there is that. And one thing you can do, if you feel like some of your crisscrosses got a bit too thick, I think I may have done that with this one. After it dried, I came back and I just used a little yellow on the very tip of the bristles and just painted in between some of these to, has it paint on it? To lighten up anything and fix up any funky lines. You may have to re-outline this middle part, or even the whole outline of your window. And you might touch up your highlight around your window if needed. Like as it's dried, it's gotten just a bit more transparent. So I'll just add a few little Van Gogh style lines around here. And now you can zoom out, Paul. That is the entire painting. We did it. We came, we painted, we conquered. It's funny, I didn't realize until I was quite a ways through the painting that my new tree is a lot narrower than this one. Usually when I'm teaching, I go bigger, so that's really funny to me. And this has been in my mind being a little more careful. Now you can see the glow on this one is a little bit, well, maybe not. Okay, it's the lighting. Yeah, they're about the same. Cool. Now you just have to sign it if you can find a spot. I'm going to do turquoise and white. I'm going to add a little water to my paint for signing. And add my signature right here. Right in with the mushrooms. It gets lost. And that's it. That was a little bit longer than the videos normally go. About maybe 15 or 20 minutes longer.
No, not quite.
Was it?
We're not quite 2 hours yet.
Okay. We usually try to get it about an hour and a half, but sometimes when we
never happens.
do a little more detail, it's harder.
It never happens.
Let's see what Paul did.
I had fun.
Oh, good. I haven't looked at yours in a long time, so. Oh, that's cute. Look, he added, I'm going to tilt this because it's got some glare. He added his one thing that, when I looked over and said, are you painting a Teletubby? It was just the red arch with the yellow circle in the middle, so it looked like Teletubby face. I love the round windows. That's really fun. And
So I was thinking to myself that if a
and the
gnome,
rocks along here, little rock path.
if a gnome moved in, he would take knot holes and make those into windows.
Oh, you're so smart.
And then this is a broken branch that's a chimney with fire smoke coming out of it.
I should have had you design this painting. You have all these waterfalls.
I had fun.
I kind of want to go back and make my window round, but I've got room to do some round ones. Like, you could make it super whimsical, like people just kept adding on and adding on. And making, I like this. It's like a little garden.
So I was thinking it's like the washed out bank.
Yeah, that's what I tried to paint on the original. A washed out bank, and then Greta was like, I don't understand what that is. That's our 16-year-old, and she will always tell me the truth. And so I actually ask her opinion all the time on paintings because at this point my skin has gotten so thick that it doesn't bother me at all. But she will always tell me the truth. That looks really bad, Mom. So, yeah, my washed out bank did not look good, but that is what I tried to aim for. I do like this too, the mossy rock thing going on over there.
Yeah, it almost feels a little bit like this kind of feels like a disconnected part of that, which I'm not real thrilled with, but it's not that big of a deal.
Well,
Like we live with that.
yeah. So this painting was inspired by, there is a set of books which I adore. They're from the 80s. I think it's the 80s. And it's called Brambley Hedge. And it's about these little mice that live in trees. And they have like a winter ball. And there's, I want to say 7 or 8 books in the set. And the illustrations are so cozy and amazing. I highly recommend, if you've got a local library, they usually carry them. I bought the set on Amazon because I wanted the whole set, just I guess for nostalgia's sake. I bought it a little over a year ago, but I love to read them. They're just so adorable. So anyway, I guess we can go back to us.
Let's go back to us. We're here.
Yeah,
Hey.
so glad you guys could join in with us again on the Friday night here.
Yeah.
Friday night painting. And for those of you guys who just popped in partway through the video, let's show our next month paintings.
Okay.
I guess yeah, we can just hold them up. So this is mine, there's Paul's. He did a snow globe. I did the gnome. So those will be in the December box, which you can still order if you haven't signed up yet.
You know what's kind of funny? Let me put my hat on the right way. We have a gnome house, then a gnome, and then you can put the gnome. I thought about doing a gnome village in this, and actually my painting had you guys get mountains 2 months in a row with mine. So
You're just a mountain man.
we turn. There we go. Hey, the mountain will be.
The mountain like disappears on that one.
That's kind of what the point was. Like, sometimes we try too hard to make everything too in your face, and that's not always what's visually appealing.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is.
So join us next Friday night, Black Friday, to paint Frost Mountain. That's the name of that one, Frost
Yep.
Mountain.
Yep.
And we'll be here for you. And check out our website. We've got a sale going on right now on a Christmas kit that's really cute. It's a snowman and a Santa. They're little wood cutouts that are freestanding, and they're adorable. And it's 15% off, and that's on gobox.com.
Yep.
And other than that, I guess we'll see you next Friday night. Thanks again for joining.
See you guys.
Bye.
Bye.